Hello, everyone, and good evening. Thank you for joining our nursing live stream, where we are going to be shining a light on nursing at De Montfort University, and more specifically talking about the role of learning disability nurses and the fantastic work that they do with some of the most vulnerable people in our society. So we're really delighted that you can join us this evening. My name's Vanessa, and I work at De Montfort University in the Faculty of Health and Life Sciences Marketing and Recruitment team. And I'm going to be hosting today's live stream along with our current students as well. It's a really important month this month for learning disability nursing, because it was the first time that we've actually celebrated Learning Disability Nurses Day, which was on the 1st of November. Where we celebrated and we recognised the really unique and vital role of a learning disability nurse. And so what we're doing with our live stream tonight is just continuing with that awareness, really, and just making sure that over the next sort of hour that we help enlighten you about the kind of course that we have here at De Montfort University, and obviously the training and education to become a learning disability nurse. As well as telling you a little bit about what you can get involved in once you graduate. So we'll be talking to some of our graduates about their careers and what they've been up to since they finished the course, as well as talking to our current students, those that are living and breathing and studying on the course right now, and what that's been like for them throughout the 3 years. So we really hope that you find this opportunity to find out more about the course and about the profession, and obviously do ask us your questions. So you'll find that there is a comments section. So if you've got anything that you want to know, please do ask us. There's nothing too silly. We're happy to answer as best we can. So please do let us know. So without further delay, I'm going to introduce my co-host now for the evening. So welcome, Emma.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Lovely to have you with me tonight. I think I'd be a bit lost because I'm not a learning disability nurse myself, so it's great that I've got your support. And I know obviously throughout the tonight you're going to be sharing your experiences, as well as chatting to our current students and our alumni as well. But let's just jump straight into the kind of what, when, how and why's with you, because you're a third-year student now, so you've got a bit of experience under your belt. You know what you're doing now. It's all kind of becoming second nature to you in terms of studying and going on placements and things. So let's go back to the very beginning. What made you want to become a learning disability nurse in the first place?
Oh, so it's a very long story, so I will keep it really short. So I've worked in special educational needs for the past 10 years. My sister has a learning disability herself, so it's kind of always been in my life, really. I've grown up with it. I come from a family of nurses, mental health nurses mainly. So again, nursing has kind of been in my life. And I guess with the last 10 years as working in a school, kind of toyed with the idea. I've done things like supporting medication, supporting feeds and things like that. I was kind of in a nice, lovely comfort zone. I was like, I don't want to move. I was a senior teaching assistant, and then COVID hit and I couldn't work. And I was like, this is now the time to break out my bubble and do something different, to have a new challenge. So it was almost kind of on a whim that I did it. I just thought, I'll give it a go. I'll apply, try my luck. And now here I am.
And here you are.
Well, not quite half a year, but yeah, coming up to qualifying in September.
Exciting. So why that particular field of practice then? Because obviously you probably could have chose children's nursing and continued to work with children, or obviously you could have gone into mental health nursing. So why did you choose that particular field of practice?
I think because I just found it like it's such a niche that, I mean, in any field of practice, we're all learning the same skills, doing all the practicals and things like that. And with learning disability nursing, especially coming from my sister, who has had experience with learning disability nurses as well, that seeing their holistic view of not only just the patient, so like, for example, my sister, but also the family and the friends. So you're supporting a wider network. You're making sure, whatever health inequalities that they have, whatever intervention you need to do, that it's tailored for them. You have a rough outline of what you want to do, but you tailor it to that individual, and just being able to advocate and make a difference, however big or small, I found really rewarding and beneficial.
Yeah, I think it's certainly one of those fields of practice where, as you say, you're not just necessarily looking after that individual, you're sort of looking after the family and their support network as well, and also just the wider learning disability community, as you say, being an advocate and being their voice, and making sure that they get, you know, the best quality and the best kind of positive life that they can have, just like everybody else would. So it's definitely, like you say, that element of a unique nursing role, definitely, and very rewarding. And I know we'll you know, touch upon that probably quite a bit throughout this live stream, I think. So lots of people that are going to be joining us for this live stream might be in that position where they've not yet applied for university. They're going to be doing some research, and hopefully that's why they're joining the live stream, because they want to find out a little bit more about this, whether that's something that they want to consider. So what kind of research were you doing sort of before you came and studied at DMU?
So I actually just went onto Google and I put in, because I am from Leicester, so I wanted to stay local, to be fair. And I just put in nursing, and you know, you get the usual hits. And then when you look in, you know, I saw the different fields. I saw learning disability, and the fact that it was literally on my doorstep was even more of a bonus. But I also looked at different, you know, like if you go on job pages and things and put in learning disability nursing, just to see roughly what the job role is, what they do. And also I found quite a lot of videos, like a live stream, or, you know, videos from the NHS and videos from other universities about learning disability nursing. And it really kind of gave you a bit of an overview of what, you know, what the course can entail, what you'll be kind of learning. So definitely doing that research. Twitter's another good one, finding learning disability nurses. There are loads on there, following them, messaging them, you know. So definitely do your research, spend that time. Going down literally a rabbit hole of a breadth of knowledge is fantastic.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think there is so much available out there on the web that you can find, like you say, whether it's reaching out to current learning disability nurses, you know, and chatting to them, or like you say, finding live streams. There's lots of information out there. I know we were talking about the NHS, the fact that they've got some fantastic stuff on their websites about the careers and about the different roles. And I think, you know, probably for a lot of people, it might just be ruling out which field of practice. It might be that you think, actually, that's not for me, or that is for me, and or figuring out who do you want to nurse? What's your, you know, who do you want to be? Is it adults? Is it children? Is it a mixture of both? What, you know, the flexibility. So yeah, definitely doing your research is key. Yeah. So I know you're coming into, started your third year now, so you've got a few months under your belt with that. Yeah. So what have been your highlights, would you say, so far in the sort of first and second year? Like, what's really stood out for you on the course?
Placements, definitely placements. Being able to go on to different placements. I mean, the list of placement is like endless. Wherever you could be put is endless. I've had community, I've had residential. I'm going to prison in a few months for my placement. So I really find that's where I shine, is my placement. But also, especially in learning disability, our cohort is quite a lovely, small, nice cohort. Making those forever friends that I've got, you know, just even if it's like a quick message about something, even if it's about uni, if it's about home life, just having that connection with other people, but as well as talking to other fields of practice as well, learning from them. I find that quite insightful. You know, some of my peers don't fully understand what a learning disability is, but likewise, I don't fully understand their field of practice. So just being able to sit and talk to them and have a discussion, have a debate about interventions, about their views and their experiences is really beneficial, because at the end of the day, when we qualify, we're all going to be working together regardless of what field of practice.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to make, actually, that obviously at Monmouth University, we still offer 4 field of practice courses, but a lot of the time you might find that you are doing shared lessons with the other fields of practice. which is really important because, you say, when you qualify, you don't necessarily nurse in isolation. You will work alongside other nursing professions, but also other allied health professions as well. So it's important, like you say, you get that at DMU, they have that collaborative kind of working where you do get to sort of work around. And I know that you'll obviously want to touch about, you know, the staff that teach on the LD course, because like you say, it's such a, because it is a small field of practice, like the group sizes are quite small. So you do get that real sense of like community and that kind of support that you have each other. I know the staff are also a really important part of that, aren't they?
Definitely. Oh yeah. I mean, we're going to like meet an academic later on, and that, you know, especially the LD team, they are so just welcoming. I mean, you know, they go out their way to help you, and you know, just having just a member of staff, especially if it's like, because you'll get a personal tutor, having a member of staff as a personal tutor just to email, and it doesn't have to be about uni, it can be about your personal life. I mean, I've done it. I've emailed and it's gone, oh, you know, like everything's too much, and it's just like, okay, should we meet on Teams? Let's just talk it through. It's just having someone there to be a soundboard, someone there to keep you grounded, and also, you know, they offer so much support, especially with assignments, because at the end of the day, they don't want to see you fail. They've seen your potential with it in your interview. They want to see you grow and develop, be the future of nursing, you know, and then be there ready to teach the next generation of nurses.
That's it. And obviously they get it. You know, they've been where you've been as well. You know, they've done the studying, they've done the placements. So you know, like you say, they're there to support you and get the best from you as you possibly can. And they are a fantastic teaching team as well. Like you say, really friendly and just really great advocates themselves of the profession and the role. So that's lovely. And I know, obviously, that in terms of the fields of practice that we have, like learning disability nursing, you know, I think I could be right in saying that it's quite often the misunderstood field of practice. It's the one, like you say, that perhaps people have only ever heard of it if they've had experiences of it perhaps themselves in their families, or it's not quite, say, it's not something that you would think about. And also, when we think about learning disability nurses, it can be a bit kind of confusing as to, well, where do you actually work as a learning disability nurse? Do you work in the hospitals? Do you have to wear a uniform? Do you go on the wards? All those kind of things that you might associate with a traditional nurse when you think about nursing in a traditional sense. And so I thought, you know, whilst it's Learning Disability Awareness Month, let's have a quick look back in terms of when did we first start to see people specialize as learning disability nurses, or whatever it would have been called then. Because you know, I know you're going to show us that actually this as a role has gone through quite a lot of changes
definitely
since it first come about. And I know that you've pulled together some really helpful slides that sort of document the timeline really of the history of the role. So I'm going to bring those slides on for you, and you can then just talk us through. So let's just bring them on now. Okay.
So I
know you want to put a disclaimer out there first, don't you, about what you can do?
I mean, it's more the fact, obviously, as you look through whatever history, there are going to be terms and terminology and phrases that seem quite, well, are now offensive today, but we need to acknowledge that these terms were used in the past, and at that time they were the right terms, whether if we agree or not. So I will be using some terminology or names of roles which you might think, oh, that's a bit offensive. I'm not here to cause offence, but I want to acknowledge our history, and by acknowledging our history, we're moving forward. We can move in a positive light and actually say, yes, the nurses were called this, but now we are called this, and celebrate our unique journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's start off then. Let's go through the timeline.
So when I was looking at this, there is a lot of history. So I've picked out key points. So there will be quite a lot of information on this slide. So I'm just going to talk generically through some key moments. So it all started in 1919 with the General Nursing Council, who were formed by the Nurses Registration Act of 1919. And learning disability nurses were called mental deficiency nurses, and we had the first one on the register in 1919. We then go to the end of World War II. So in 1945, we had a name change. So we then became mental subnormality nurses. But interestingly, during the war, any of those nurses who enlisted weren't put down as nurses, they were put as reserved occupations. So there you go, that's the hint of we're not being seen as real nurses at the time. Mm-hmm. And then in the 1950s, the General Nursing Council then became responsible for all nurses and all the training, and had the real emphasis of nursing and learning those skills at the bedside.
Okay, brilliant.
So when we go to 1959, the Mental Capacity Act, and within that, admissions to hospitals became voluntary unless the person was a danger to themselves or to others. And we also had many mental hospitals closed within 15 days. In the 1970s, we had another name change. So we went from mental subnormality nurses to mental handicapped nurses. We also had the Better Services for Mentally Handicapped white paper launched. In the 1979, we have the Ely Hospital scandal. And then in 1986, we saw the first closures of the long stay institutions. So one was Starcross in Exeter. And then in the 1990s, we had yet another name change to where we are now called learning disability nurses. You might also see, it depends what area in the where in the world, or actually sometimes in the UK, they're called intellectual disability nurses. So there is a bit of two different names, but it depends where you are. I know here we're learning disability nurses, and we had the shift forward to focusing more on community care, and we also had further closures of long stay hospitals. So we're coming to the 2000s, and we have quite a few key papers come out in relation to learning disability. So we had the Valuing People white paper, the MenCap Deaf by Indifference paper, and Healthcare for All. In 2009, we had the Valuing People 3-year strategy, which began to focus on employment, health and housing for those who have a learning disability. In 2010, we unfortunately had the Winterbourne View scandal, which obviously BBC Panorama exposed, and that was the poor treatment of those with a learning disability, and it's quite shocking. From those lessons, we had the Transforming Care paper come out. In 2016, we had the Learning Disabilities Mortality Review, which is called LEADER, and that looks at any death of someone with a learning disability, because it's well known that someone with a learning disability may die a lot earlier than someone who's in the general population. So it's just looking at around their death, not pointing fingers, but looking at how we can help improve for the next person and learn from lessons and try and reduce those health inequalities. And then we come to 2018. What I found from one of these when I was researching was 2018 was the lowest number of LD nurses in the NHS, which is quite sad, really. It's only a few years ago. But we also had the Learning Disability Standards launched, which looked at skills of nurses and workforce and specialist skills. In 2019, we had 100 years of learning disability nursing, so a great achievement to celebrate, really. Yeah. And then, as Vanessa said earlier on, this year we saw the launch of the first Learning Disability Nurses Day, which was launched by the UK Learning Disability Consultant Nurse Network, and especially this year looking at getting learning disability nursing out there into the world and shout about what a great and unique role that we play.
Yeah, and I think, thank you for pulling that sort of timeline together, because I think it's useful just to see that journey of where the role sort of began and sort of where we are now. And I think, obviously there's probably still such a long way that we could go in terms
Definitely.
of making it even better. But it's shocking to think that actually, even if you just go back 20 odd years ago, how different that kind of role was. And yet people with learning disabilities have existed, since however long. So, I mean, you just can't imagine actually not having a specialist role there to sort of, like you say, care, support, and be their advocate. So I think it's fantastic to sort of highlight the role that you guys are working towards, and those of you that are already in that role, of the work that you do. It's so vital and so needed. And hopefully, those numbers are going to grow, because we definitely need more and more learning disability nurses. So thank you for sharing that timeline with us. And obviously, if you're watching at home and that's sparked your interest and you're thinking, do you know what, I want to go and find out a little bit more about that field of practice, then do go and have a look and find that information on the internet. You can go to our course page, which is running along the bottom, which tells you a little bit about our learning disability course. But even before that, like I say, you might want to go and have a look in detail about what the role is and kind of what you can be sort of thinking about in terms of your career going forward. Okay, so I think it's time that we probably brought some other people on to join us, Emma, and have a chat with them. And I know we've got a couple of our current year 2 learning disability nursing students. I'm going to introduce them and bring them onto screen now. So we have Ryland and we have Hannah. Good evening, guys.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us this evening. It's lovely to sort of have a different perspective on the course area, because as I say, you guys have just gone into your second year now, haven't you? So I know obviously things might be a little bit different to how Emma would have experienced them. So Emma, over to you.
Yeah. So you've both now completed a full year of the course. How have you found it so far? How did you find the transition from, if you came from sixth form or college or from the working world to then coming to university?
So I worked for 5 years first and then transitioned in. So it was slightly different trying to get back into academic writing again. But I'd sort of I did dental nursing before, so I'd sort of been in education anyway, continuously. So it wasn't too strange, but it was a bit of a shock at first.
Definitely, I remember that. Like I said, I'd worked for 10 years and I was like, oh, yeah. I thought the jump would be quite easily. Yeah, no, it's not actually. There is a bit of a jump, but I don't know about you guys. I know when I was in first year, I found the support, like we did like a mini assignment and we just got feedback from it and was completely always signposted to the library for help with assignments. Ryland, what about you? How did you find the jump to university?
Well, I came from college, like directly out of college, and not a lot of learning disability nursing students do come straight from college. A lot of us are actually mature students. Personally, I was absolutely dying to like live on my own and, get out of my town and, just learn. But like it became a lot more difficult when I came here. So I've come from 150 miles away. So I had difficulties with not seeing my family. I had difficulties with like mental health and academic writing. But something great about DMU is that there's so much support out there for you. And, you can get support for your mental health and you can get support to write academically from your lecturers, from the library. So while it was difficult transitioning to higher education, it's definitely made a lot easier by the support services.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a great point, Ryan. Thank you for sharing about like the mental health and stuff that, I know quite a lot of people might say, nurses, we know everything, you're tough as old boots, but actually we are human at the end of the day. And we all, we all have personal struggles, we all have things that in our personal life that we feel that might be a barrier. And actually it's not a barrier. I know for me, I'm dyslexic, and I was that person that go, oh yeah, I can do this, I don't need any help, and that kind of came back to haunt me, especially after that first assignment, that there's no shame for asking for help, because, you know, why spite yourself? And, you know, like you said, even without having like the support from Student Finance England with the disability support allowance, that there is a lot of support at the uni, like one-to-one tutorials. You can email your personal tutor, you can email the module leaders, because like I said earlier, they don't want to see you fail. Did you guys have any worry about coming that you thought, actually, I didn't need to worry about that? You know, I think mine was the I'm a mature student and everyone's going to be younger and I'm going to be the oldest. That was my worry, especially because I started during COVID, that we were online. Did you guys have any worries or things that you might feel like they're probably silly, but they're not?
I think my biggest worry was sort of the finance side of it, going from like a full-time job to then just relying on a student finance. And it's quite you can get like a part-time job in between, but it's quite difficult to find the time to sort of do that as well. So I think that was my biggest worry, really, at the beginning.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, my biggest worry was definitely that I was going to be terrible at nursing, which is kind of your standard doubt when it comes to coming to university. But I was genuinely terrified that I was going to be horrible at it and that I was going to make people upset. But when I came into placement, you know, the support that they give you while you're on placement, it helps instill a lot of confidence. So like, I very quickly built up my confidence, and like now I'm fairly confident enough to say that I'm fairly good at doing some nursing.
And I think everyone gets that. There's something that's called imposter syndrome that flies around a lot, especially in the nursing world. And I think if you feel like that, it's normal. I've heard from qualified nurses as well. They feel like that. You feel like you're not good enough for the job, you're not doing the right thing, but actually, you know, we are, you know, even after we qualify, we're going to learn. You've also brought me on to a great subject, which is placement, because I know it's like a subject that everyone asks questions on the open day. So thinking back to your first placement in year one, how did you feel? How do you think it went? And what did you learn? Obviously, not mentioning places and names and stuff because of confidentiality. But so if you feel comfortable sharing your thoughts and your feelings, then please do. But obviously I respect that, you know, placements can be quite personal, and experiences are personal, so don't share anything that you feel uncomfortable to share. I don't want to know who wants to go first.
My first placement was at a special needs school, so I'd done volunteering at a special needs school before, so I was quite excited. But I was a little bit apprehensive, like, oh no, like it's going to be completely different. I didn't really know sort of what to expect. And, you know, like when you have to call them and like introduce yourself, that's really nerve-wracking. And then it's like, oh,
still is.
even now.
Yeah, definitely is.
But it was really good, and I got more excited the closer I sort of got to it. I drive, so it was really easy to get to. So I'd done like my test run and I was like, all right, I know where I'm going now. So that made it easier. And it was really, really good. I really loved it. That was my best one, I think. It was lovely.
Yeah, my placement was at a day centre for profound and multiple learning disabilities. It was absolutely amazing. Managed to get entirely stuck in with everything that they were doing, as long as it was like within first year sort of range. And they were really supportive and incredibly friendly. But I mean, also, like, I think something's worth mentioning, that like placements love it when you come to them with an enthusiasm about learning disabilities and a willingness to get stuck in. I turned up on my first day of placement and I said, like, as long as it falls within first year scope, I am happy to do whatever you want me to.
No, that's definitely good. Like you said, being enthusiastic and, you know, getting stuck in. I always believe in, and I've heard from, you know, past mentors and things, whatever you put in is what you get back out. You put 100% in your placement,
Exactly.
you get 100% back. How did you guys prepare for your placement? Because I think it was a bit different to how I prepared in year one. You had something called a placement prep week, I believe.
Yeah.
Is that right?
So
how do you prepare for placement?
So placement preparation week is something that we all have now, where we get a booklet that contains things that we need to research about our upcoming placement. It's usually on the week before, and it will include things like researching 3 comorbidities that you will come into contact with during the time of your placement. So, for example, for my first placement, I researched epilepsy as one of mine, and also when I was preparing for placement, I definitely looked up the service that I was going to, because sometimes they have Facebook pages, sometimes they have lots of different social media pages or websites, and just really take a trawl through like anything that they have on there just to give yourself a clue of what you might be going into. Also, something that is really good to do as well when you phone up your placement is to have a script, because I'm autistic, so I have trouble figuring out what to say sometimes, is to have a script of exactly what questions to ask, and if you're stuck on questions to ask, ask someone who's in second and third year, because they'll know the things that you might not think you need to ask.
Yeah, no, definitely. What about you, Hannah? How did you prepare?
Yeah, same. Pretty much. Like googling them, trying to find as much information really out as you can. And I sort of wrote a script as well on like what sort of things to ask, because there's always something, and you hang the phone up, then you're like, oh, I should have asked that. And like you think of more things. So I definitely, after my first one, I thought, right, I'm gonna write everything down that I think I need to like say. And yeah,
No,
the placement preparation. Sorry,
I'm jumping. No, definitely, that is a good point of writing a script. I wish I knew that in my first year because I didn't. I'll be like asking my friends, my cohorts, what do I need to do next? What is your favourite placement so far? So I know you had 3 in year one. I think you're on placement now. You're not on placement.
We're on our placement preparation week at the minute, so we're start next week.
So have you got a favourite placement so far?
Mine was definitely the school, I think, because I was able to get loads done, and the classroom that I was in was going on a residential trip as well whilst I was there, so I was invited to go on that with them as well. So it was really lovely.
I think you said, Ryland, yours was the day centre that you were at, or was that changed? Because I know when I go on each placement I've gone on, I'm going, that's my favourite, that's my favourite, that's my favourite, that's my favourite. So
I think by far my favourite one was my most recent one, which was at a psychiatric unit for learning disabilities. It's definitely very interesting. It's got a lot to do with complex care. And I think as well, in that sort of like high stress environment is where I work best. Also, I'm like very passionate about mental health and stuff like that. So it's something that allowed me to get into my interest a lot more. Like, for example, researching things like borderline personality disorder, that certainly interested me a lot. And also like thinking about things like the Mental Capacity Act and the Mental Health Act and how they interact was very interesting.
Yeah, no, definitely. I know. I bet some of the listeners will be thinking, well, how do I get onto these placements? These sound amazing. DMU have their own placement team in HLS, so Health and Life Sciences. I know that I filled in a bit of a quick form, like where my interests are, where I'd like to go, but and they sort it for you, so you kind of get allocated a placement. Sometimes people might be like, oh, I don't know if I really like that placement, but actually you learn a lot from a good and a bad placement, so go in there was always learning curves, and learning opportunities, and having insight days where, especially if you're in hospital, you might be able to go to different wards. If you're in the community, you might be able to go out with different nurses, go out with different teams. So yeah, that is definitely a thing, that having the placement given to you, it gives you actually an insight of, oh, I actually didn't think about that role. Like mine was, I was in a residential setting for my last placement, and I actually didn't realise that some of those settings actually have a nursing team. So I was like, why am I going there? Some nurses? And there was a nursing team, and I actually found that really insightful and supporting them. So I think
that leads us in nicely to the next thing.
Yeah.
We've talked about kind of careers and progression, because I think we've touched a little bit about that, about people might not necessarily be aware about actually where would you work as a learning disability nurse, and what kind of settings or what kind of roles will you have. So I mean, it's fascinating to hear you guys talk about the placements that you've been on, because obviously you just said, Emma, about the variety that you can sort of have, and like you say, hopefully you get put in the placements based on what your interests are. But I think that you've made a really good point about, even if you did go or get allocated a placement where you first might look at it and think, oh, do you know what, I'm really not going to be happy about that one, or I don't think that's going to be great. It's still really vital, because that just shows you that actually perhaps in the future that might not be where you're going to go and have a career, and that's great. It's taught you that, if anything else, and it's all a learning opportunity, isn't it?
Definitely.
So thank you very much, Hannah and Ryland. I know you're going to hang around and help with some Q&A for us a little bit later on. So if anyone at home does have a question that you want to put to our current students, I'm sure Hannah and Ryland will be more than happy. I think you've got somebody watching at home, Ryland, because someone called Hayley has popped a comment up saying hi, Ryland. So you've got a fan already that's watching, which is great. So we'll bring you guys back on in a moment. So thank you for now.
Thank you.
So yeah, we're going to move on to the next, the last section really, which is sort of bringing us round full circle now. So we're actually going to think about, after we've done our research and after we've done our studying and we've qualified, what do we have in store afterwards? So we are really pleased that we can bring in our graduate Annie, our alumni from the Learning Disability course, and we're also joined by Sam, who's one of the lecturers on the LD programme and is a registered learning disability nurse himself. So good evening, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Hi.
Hello.
Very
You guys all right?
your moments to shine.
So Annie, how long have you been qualified?
I have been qualified just over a year. So I qualified September 2019. 2019. Oh my goodness, age of myself. 2021. Losing count of the years.
Has it been that long already? So when you left DMU, what did you do? What role did you go into?
So I went into a community staff nurse position, and that's where I currently am. I work as a community learning disability nurse for Nottinghamshire Healthcare NHS Trust.
Oh wow. Can you explain a bit about your role? Obviously, again, with confidentiality, I know you can only say so much, but it'd be really interesting to hear what your role is.
Yeah, of course. So I work as part of a community learning disability team where we have a wider MDT, which is made up of occupational therapists, physiotherapists, psychiatrists, speech and language therapists, and we work with individuals with a learning disability, adults with a learning disability, all across Nottinghamshire, and we work to kind of improve better health outcomes. We work on physical health, mental health, challenging behaviour, sexual health. Sometimes it's medications management. Sometimes we get involved with transitions. For a whole kind of host of things we get involved with. We joke in our team that we are the jack of all trades, master of none. We kind of do a little bit of everything.
That's what I was literally going to say. Wow, you're literally a jack of all trades. It's like a whole breadth. How was it registering with the Nursing and Midwifery Council, the NMC? Because I know some people that have just qualified like last year, and they're like, oh, I'm finally on the register and stuff. Like, how was it? What was the feeling when you got your pin and you were a nurse and you dropped the student nurse part?
It was quite exciting. I was quite fortunate where my last 2 placements before I qualified were part of the same team that I'm working with now. So yeah, I'm coming up to actually 2 years working with the team in February, which is really exciting. So I think kind of before I qualified, people just assumed that I was a nurse anyway. So I kind of almost dropped the student kind of line, maybe kind of like towards August of like before I qualified. So yeah, it kind of seemed like quite a seamless transition for me. But definitely when I got the email that I got my pin, that was very exciting. And it was actually, so my manager at the time, it was her leaving due that evening, so we had like a whole like celebratory like her leaving but me getting my pin kind of due, which was really nice.
Oh wow, that's amazing. I was going to ask, how did you find the jump from student to qualified? Because I think that's one of my fears. Like, you know, you're student, you're supervised, they're not holding your hands, but you supervise. You kind of go, well, I am a student, I'm still learning, and then in that world, oh, now I am the nurse. How did you find that jump?
Yeah, it was a little bit strange. I think when I kind of stopped having to like ask someone to validate my notes and ask someone like if this was okay, that kind of was like, oh my goodness, like the book stops with me, I'm the nurse.
Yeah.
That was a little bit of kind of like imposter syndrome and kind of like, can I actually do this? But the team I have with me are so supportive, they're so lovely. They actually really, really helped. They were like, no, you can do this. So that was really nice. And yeah, it just kind of, as the months went on, I kind of found myself growing in confidence. But yeah, having a supportive team around you really, really helps with that kind of jump.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I definitely agree with that. Sam, I know you've been qualified for a while, and you've obviously been doing you're doing the course. You teach me. You've taught Annie. Can you tell us a brief history of your learning disability nurse journey, like what your job roles, how you got into being a lecturer?
Yeah, sure. So I'll go back a little bit more because I just like to talk. That's what I do. So back into how I got into nursing. So first, how I got into learning disability nursing. That was a mistake. Not a mistake. That's the wrong word. An accident is the word I'm searching for. Because I started off doing adult nursing first. And I did that because I didn't know what else to do. I thought it would be a good career, secure, always going to need nurses, decent money. Let's do adult nursing. Why not? So I did it. I started it. It was okay. Didn't love it. Didn't hate it. Went on my first placement. Didn't like it at all. It was scary. I was just inexperienced. Hadn't come with any kind of thought about a career path or anything like that. And it surprised. I remember walking on my very first day on a ward, and I was surprised that there were like 6 people in this hospital base that I was going to have to try and look after. So I thought, okay, this is just because I was inexperienced. Stick with it. It's all going to be fun. And when I did my training, we used to get sent on 4-week placements in a field of practice that was completely different to what we were doing. So I was adult nurse at the time, and I got sent into a learning disability day service as my 4-week experience in another field of practice. And this day service was amazing. Like, I did so much in those 4 weeks with people with learning disabilities. I got to support them with just the kind of basic activities of daily living that most of us would take for granted, and just seeing the kind of support that people would offer them, just support to just make friends or to just be together or with people. And I supported people to go and vote, I think, at the time as well. There was a general election, and just being able to support people in that kind of environment was just completely eye-opening to me. So that's when I decided to switch to do learning disability nursing instead. So that's kind of how I found my way into the kind of career pathway. I graduated in 2012, so 10 years this year, and I started off working in one of the areas. I had a placement in my second year when I was a student. And I was listening to what you were saying before, Emma, about the kind of placements that you go to that you think, oh, I don't know if I'm going to like this one. And I had that feeling about this placement I went to in my second year. It was a residential nursing service. So I kind of read it and thought, it's a nursing home. I'm not going to like nursing homes. Seeing the same people, it's going to be boring. So I went there with kind of a little bit of that mindset, if I'm honest. But I loved it. It was amazing. I kept in touch with everyone. Like, I was there for 12 weeks and I did so much in those 12 weeks. Like I say, I loved it so much that I kept in touch. So when I came to qualifying, I went back and said, have you got any jobs still? And they did. So that's where I went to work. And I stayed there for over 5 years, actually, when I qualified. Started off as one of the staff nurses, went on to be the deputy service manager for nursing, and was a service manager for a while as well. So kind of stayed there and sort of progressed my way through. And I did that, like I say, for about 5 years, had a brilliant time there. I was lucky enough to do a few courses while I was there. So I did a mentoring course so I could support student nurses whilst I was in placement, which was really rewarding. It was great to have students around and sort of remind me about why I was doing things in a certain way. And then I did a management course as well. So again, that was a useful thing to sort of have under your belt. Did that for a year. And I decided I wanted to try something else. So I've been there for a while and fancied trying my hand at something different. So I moved from that area, which was primarily for people with profound and multiple physical and learning disabilities. So people that kind of really struggle to communicate verbally, have a lot of physical health needs, into a liaison role, so a primary care liaison nurse. So my role then was to support people within primary care, so general practitioners, practice nurses, opticians, dentists, to support people with learning disabilities. So I'd go and educate them about people with learning disabilities, and I have a small caseload of people with learning disabilities as well, who I'd support around health needs or health appointments. And again, that was a kind of a big change from where I was before, because I'd gone from people with quite profound needs to people with quite mild needs that kind of their learning disability had smaller impact. And I remember on my first day there being surprised that someone could talk to me verbally, because for 5 years I'd been with people that couldn't do that. So again, I guess my kind of common theme throughout all of my sort of career is being surprised. Like, learning disability nursing has always been a surprise. The entire career option was a surprise to me. Where I wanted to work was a surprise. The different roles I could have was a surprise. And that's kind of carried on through. And that's kind of how I ended up doing what I do now, so lecturing and teaching by surprise. Again, I've kept in touch with people. So when I did my training back in 2009 to 2012, I had a colleague called Justine there, who was one of my lecturers, and she was teaching me. Again, we've kept in touch over the years, and I happened to message her about something, I can't remember what it was, I just something ridiculous anyway. She was like, oh, by the way, you're free on like Wednesday, because there's a lesson that he's teaching if you're interested. And that's kind of how it started. So I sort of started doing a few bits and pieces for DMU, ad hoc stuff while I was working in practice, and then kind of progressed full time. And it was Annie's cohort, the 1809 group, that were kind of the first students that I started with when I was at DMU full time. So Annie's group were the first ones I saw from sort of start to finish. And they were brilliant students, absolutely brilliant, and were very kind to me, particularly while I was settling in, and let me practice lots of things as well to see what worked and what didn't. So thank you, Annie.
Well, you've clearly done a fab job, Sam, because obviously Annie, seems like you've got a fantastic role since you've graduated. And I think just listening to Sam give his career highlights of everything that he's been involved in. And I think it's interesting to hear Sam's side of it as well, that he started out with one kind of idea about nursing and what he thought he was going to go into. And then obviously, you know, things happen and you can change your mind and suddenly think, actually, this is more for me. And I think when we've done open days, I know certainly the conversations that we have with visitors is very much kind of like figuring out which field of practice do they think they want to do. And then quite often through conversations that they might have with Sam or with Emma or, you know, colleagues on the open day, they come out thinking something completely different and think, oh, actually, that sounds more interesting. That sounds like something I'd be want to be involved in. So it's really great to hear both sides of that. And I know, Annie, that you need to disappear from us in a moment. So I think just before you go, I think it'd be really useful for you guys just to give Emma some of your tips in terms of how to prepare for the world of work, because next year it's going to fly around. It will go so quickly past Christmas. You're going to be in that reality, aren't you, of thinking about jobs and where you're going to work. So, Annie, what would be your top tip for Emma in terms of preparing for her first nursing role?
Oh, I think just be open-minded. Like, you kind of might have one idea of what you want to do, or like what your dream job might be, but like, don't be discouraged if that's not your first nursing post. Like, you can do so many things with your nursing pin and your LD nursing career. Like, don't be discouraged. Get a job that you feel passionate about, and yeah, I'm sure you'll be absolutely amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Sam, how about you? What would you say for some advice?
I think you kind of gave yourself some advice earlier, Emma, again, that I was listening to. You talked about like being the nurse and sort of feeling like you need to know everything. I think, like Annie said, keep that open mind and be upfront. We're not going to know everything. That's part of the reason I like the job that I'm in now, is that when you guys go out into placement and come back and tell me what it's like you're teaching me about some of the stuff that I don't see anymore. So I think, keep that kind of inquisitive, that lifelong learning. And they say that a lot about nursing, don't they? But it is kind of a lifelong learning. And I think so. That would be my biggest tip, I guess, is do everything you can. That if people offer you courses or anything like that, I never say no to a freebie. If it gets me a certificate, I will do it. So yeah, keep that lifelong learning.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I've heard from qualified nurses, your real learning starts when you're qualified, and even like 20, 30 years on, that you're still learning, because things are constantly changing. There's new interventions, new ways of working. So yeah, no, definitely. Thank you both for joining me tonight and chatting to us and alleviating my nerves for the upcoming September when I qualify. Because it's definitely, especially in a future career, I know LD nursing, we can be everywhere and anywhere. So no, definitely. No, thank you.
Annie, I know you're going to jump out now, so thank you for joining us. And Sam, are you going to hang around and help to answer any questions that we might have? Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you, Annie, and we'll see you again soon, no doubt. Bye-bye. Okay, so let's bring back Hannah and Ryland now. So we've got a full suite there of people to try and answer some of your questions. So we've hoped that you've found those discussion points insightful and helpful, perhaps in trying to sort of figure out a little bit more about your own choice of nursing roles and a bit about learning disability nursing and what they do and where they work. And I think it really has highlighted that it's not a traditional nursing role in terms of thinking about people working in hospitals and on the wards and wearing the uniforms and things. Actually, what we've hopefully highlighted is that role is so diverse, and anywhere that you'd come into contact with someone with a learning disability is where you can go and work, basically, and that's where you could go and find yourself. So it is so varied and so vast, with lots of progression opportunity, actually, probably more so than most fields of practice in terms of the different roles that are out there and how quickly you can progress through those kind of stages as well. So if you have someone that thinks, actually, I'm quite career driven and I can see myself going into something completely high up or wherever, then there is that opportunity. Or perhaps, say, you might want to stay in the community, or you might want to do something, go into academia and actually teach people to become learning disability nurses. So it's really, really open. Okay, so let's have a look, see if we've got any comments and questions that we can bring in. And I think one of the questions that I wanted to ask the current students that didn't manage to was just talking a little bit about the interview process for coming to university, because for a lot of people that might be watching at home, that's probably could be the next step for them in terms of their application journey, because I know we're starting to interview now for our nursing programs. So if you are out there and you've got an interview coming up, then hopefully we can just ask Ryland and Hannah a little bit about how they found that interview process, because obviously it wasn't that long ago when you would have gone through the same process, because we've been doing online interviews now for a little while. So Hannah, how did you find that interview process? How was it doing an online interview firstly?
I definitely felt more relaxed about it being online. I didn't have as much anxieties because I didn't have to travel anywhere. I could just stay in like my own comfort. And it wasn't as daunting not being face to face to somebody. Really, I found. Yeah. It was
Riley, how about you?
Scary.
It was what, sorry?
Not that Sam's scary. Sam interviewed me.
Oh, did he? No, I'm sure Sam would be one of those ones that put you right at ease. Just have a chat, basically. Just had a quick chat.
That's what I found it as. It was just like having an informal chat, but obviously looking smart, and obviously talking about like what I've done tonight, saying why LD nursing? Why not the other fields of practices? Why this? What's your journey? What's your experience? What can you bring to the table, almost kind of thing.
I think that the interview process is definitely it's a two-way thing. I mean, obviously the academics will ask questions and you will answer, but it is just about really finding out, okay, so what's your motivations for wanting to do nursing, wanting to be a learning disability nurse or a children's nurse? Why do you want to come to DMU and do that? Why is it that you want to come to us? So it's a bit about sort of having that conversation, and like you say, the online process hopefully is a little bit sort of less daunting because you're in your own, hopefully in your own environment, somewhere where you feel comfortable, and like Emma alluded, looking professional still, looking smart, putting on that best appearance and having an appropriate background. I mean, girls allowed posters are allowed. It's absolutely fine. Not mentioning any names there. But yeah, so Ryland, what advice would you give to somebody then that might be preparing for their interview? What would your top tip be for them?
Without giving much away, I would say keep up to date with recent events within like the learning disability and nursing sphere.
No, yeah, definitely.
I think that's a really important part actually, is telling us a little bit about what do you know, what have you sort of read about recently, or kind of, what's going on within the sector, and anything that you perhaps, have found challenging or perhaps you don't agree with, and what are you going to do about that when you graduate, like when you qualify, what difference are you going to try and make? So that's a really good point. Absolutely. Sam, what's your top tip, would you say, for anyone preparing for their interview?
I guess my first one is a practical one. So obviously we can see you can see a tonight, but we can't see anything around you. So post-it notes on your screen, like we're not going to know if you've got stuff around you to help. So I would be practical. And I agree with what everyone was saying. It is stuff about like why you want to do LD is really good, why you want to do certificate DMU is really good. I just want to give them answers away. Things like the 6Cs are really useful things to mention as well. Those kind of core nursing elements, I guess, just so that you've got a bit of foundational knowledge, so that we know you've been interested enough to kind of look a few things up before you speak to this. I guess those things are really useful. Like perspective of LD, why LD? Why not anything else? What makes us the best answers for LD? But what makes us special? Why have you picked us?
Yeah, absolutely. And it sort of leads on to this kind of question as well, which is a bit more, again, around that application thing. So cast your minds back, guys, to when you were putting your UCAS applications together and then putting that personal statement, which is often the first stumbling block, I think, when you come to an application, is thinking, right, I've got to write this statement now about myself and about why I want to do the course or why I want to go to university. So Hannah, what would you say in terms of things to think about that you might want to include, or what did you sort of allude to in your personal statement?
Gosh, I can't really remember.
I'm thinking back, I'm like, oh, what did I put? It was so
definitely about like previous experience, what's driven you to want to do what you're applying for. So what's driven you to do LD nursing in my case, our case.
I think the experience is a really important thing actually as well, just to mention, because again, there's that I suppose that kind of concern, or kind of do they have to come with nursing or care experience already? Because that's one thing we get a lot on open days, is people panicking because they've not they've not got care experience necessarily, or they've not been on a hospital ward or whatever, and so they get a bit panicked and thinking that that's going to go against them in any way. So how many of you had probably could say you had care experience as such before you applied?
When I did a BTEC in childcare many moons ago, and that was my latest qualification, was a BTEC in childcare. So the only care I've done is really personal care for children in a special needs school. I don't think I've actually stepped on a ward, other than personal experience that I need to go to hospital, or the fact, when I was younger with my parents, who were mental health nurses. So no, I've not had a background. And in fact, I actually emailed DMU inquiries and said, look, I've got this qualification, I've got this experience with my sister, and I've worked here. Have I got a chance? What do I need to do? So there's no harm in asking, you don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to have that experience.
I think a lot of people have experience that they don't think is experience as well. So they might have a waitressing job, for example, where they're dealing with customers all the time. They have to have obviously decent health and safety and hygiene, so all of those things as well, and might have responsibility for dealing with the money on the till, so they can show that they're a responsible person. So it's all of those kind of things that actually you think, well, how is waitressing in any way connected to sort of being a nurse? But it's more about how do you make the connection between the skills and the experiences that you've got to nursing. Like, how could you apply those? And it isn't, we don't want you to necessarily already come and be a nurse already, because that's what you're going to university for. You're going to learn all of that. That's the whole point of it, isn't it? Okay, well, we've actually come to time now. I told you it would go very quickly, and that hour would absolutely fly around, and I'm sure we could carry on for at least another good hour just talking about all the different and great things about learning disability nursing. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Ryland and Hannah and Sam, for remaining on and helping us out with the Q&A. We do really appreciate that. And if anybody wants to find out more about us, and I do recommend that you do come along to our next open day. So the next open day will be in January. I'll pop the website up on there for you to go and have a look. You can go and book your place. If you're lucky enough, you might see Sam and Emma on an open day. So you can go and chat to them and say that you've seen them on the live stream. They are such a great way to find out about, not just about the courses, but just generally about the university. How does it look, feel? Do you like it? Do you like the campus? Do you like the fact that you can walk to the city centre within 10 minutes and go to Nando's and do all of those things that you might want to do as a student? Open days are the best way to come and experience that and sort of see whether or not DMU is right for you. And obviously you can come and see our nursing facilities, you can talk to the academics, you can talk to the students. So there's everything there. There's even the placement team. So again, if you want to find out more about placements and where would you go, then you can go and talk to the team. So do pop along to the next open day. And if there's anything that we haven't been able to answer, or if you've got questions that you want us to pass on to Sam and the learning disability team, you can get in touch with us there, and they'll happily get in touch back and help in any way that they can with your research or finding out a little bit more. So everyone can go off now and enjoy the rest of their evening. So thank you very much, everybody. And we hope to see you at De Montfort University on our learning disability course very soon. Good evening, guys. Bye-bye. See you later.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.